Hi, and welcome back to the Global Flow series. I am so excited to be back today with Howard Falco. Thank you so much for joining us. It's such an honor. I've been checking out all of your work, and this is going to be just so much fun.
Oh, thank you. I'm very honored to be here and to be able to talk to you about this.
Yeah, awesome. So I'm going to read your official bio because I love reading these, and I'm always like even more impressed myself. It's just fabulous. So Howard is a spiritual teacher and an expert on mindfulness and human understanding and potential. He is a mind coach to college and professional athletes in the MLB, NHL, and NFL, CEOs and corporate executives and individuals looking for a new way of overcoming life's challenges and achieving exceptional results. Howard has authored 2 books about self-awareness and the power of personal creation. His first one is titled I Am, The Power of Discovering Who You Really Are. And his second book is Time in a Bottle, Mastering the Experience of Life. Through his books, speeches, and private coaching, Howard presents a powerful insight and wisdom regarding how to harness more of the creative energy we each have within us that leads to new personal results. Offered are the keys to discovering who you really are and what's truly possible for you. The result is more conscious control of the creative process of life from this precious moment forward. I love it. This is so fun, and I love the angle we're going to be taking today. So can you just explain a bit more about how you started and how you got here? I know you talk a little bit about your past life, and I do the same with with mine.
Sure. Well, I was always extremely curious about the nature of life. I've always been curious how things work. And when I was very young, I had an experience the first time I was camping where I had never experienced or witnessed that many stars in the night sky before. And it was a real transformative moment for me, because when I looked upon that sky in that wilderness, I'll never forget it. I saw more stars than there was sky. And it spawned a whole bunch of questions in me about the nature of existence. What was that? How does that relate to me and my life? And as I went through my life, these questions sort of were in the back of my mind. And I went through a fairly normal life. My parents were divorced. I ended up putting myself through school, moving from Chicago in the States to Illinois to Arizona to go to school there. And I got married, had 2 kids, got a job in the financial business, was living sort of a regular life, but these questions still nagged at me. And they begged to be answered. And I didn't feel like I could be happy unless they were answered. So in sort of a moment of pure yearning, being worried that I didn't know how I was going to live my life unless I had these questions answered, I reached my hands up and I simply said, I want to know. And I said this to the universe, to life, to whatever your idea of God is, but I just sort of raised my hands and said I wanted to know. And over the course of the next 6 months, I started to see how life is always talking to us, and life is always presenting us with what we're looking or intending to achieve. And I was blown away by this process, that life is a big answering machine, if you will, if you're present and if you're in the flow. And I asked, once I realized that, and I realized that a second thing, which was that happiness was not based on anything on the outside, but an internal perception of yourself. Those 2 things sort of catapulted me into this space of presence where I asked more questions. And then I had a second experience we're going back almost 14, 15 years, which was sort of a massive experience of revelation, insight, that blew the first one away. And in that moment, everything became, well, I shouldn't say everything, because there's always more to know and I'm always asking new questions, but much about the nature of existence that I never anticipated knowing became known in a flash, in an instant. It brought me to such a humbling moment, such a moment of humility and almost a sense of unworthiness, that it took me about a year to process this and to realize that I could write about this, I could speak, and I could teach about this, and to have the will and the belief to do it. And I finally made that decision when I realized that this information isn't for anybody special, it's for everybody. And when I finally realized that, I was okay to take the mantle to do this in my way. I wrote my first book, I Am, The Power of Discovering Who You Really Are. I got to a great agent and publisher, and it got published, and then I started speaking and teaching. And then something interesting happened. Not only was I working, teaching in spiritual centers and to individuals going through all sorts of life issues, I started to get calls from professional and college athletes who said they read the material, and this is the result of what happened. This is how their performance increased. And it was a perfect fit for me, being a regular sort of everyday guy who played sports growing up, and it was just a perfect fit for the material. So I started living sort of both areas, the spiritual area and the sports area.
Yeah.
And then I wrote a second book. So that's how I got to this. That's the short version, I guess, if you will, on how this came to be.
I love it. And I'm just, partly I'm just nosy, but...
No, that's good. That's curious. Yeah.
How did you experience suddenly knowing everything? Because you kind of, I don't know if you're willing to share that, but you kind of...
No.
I'm like, so suddenly you just knew everything? That's amazing.
I am happy to express how that all happened. So you have to, the one thing to understand is this wasn't something that happened, like I had this intention since that moment in the wilderness when I was 14 years old, and I glanced at the night sky. I really wanted to know, and it kept growing and growing and growing. And what happened was, as I was accumulating things, I was getting more nervous because I wasn't feeling that sense of peace that I thought I should have. I loved my wife and children, but where was that ultimate, I could just, and it came because my curiosity wasn't satiated. So I thought the last thing I needed was millions of dollars to go, but I realized that money has nothing to do with happiness. There's a lot of times it can be a giant distraction from happiness. And there isn't anything wrong with money. It's depending on the intention of the person behind it and what they're using it for. But when that excuse left me, I was out of answers. I didn't know what the meaning of happiness was anymore, or because that wasn't it. So what was left? And then I was staring into this abyss. I guess, Joanna, the real catalyst was when I asked those questions, I was willing to give up everything, really including my entire life, my identity. That's how badly I wanted to drink from this awareness. Now, I do want to say that people have epiphanies every day about little things in life or bigger things in life. I was ready to drink from the fire hose, and I didn't care what it meant to my personal identity. If I had to change that, and all these beliefs I'd held since I was very little were destroyed, I was okay with that. That was worth it to me to gain this insight. Not everybody's ready for that, or people are ready for smaller pieces of it. And on my journey of taking the material in I Am and expressing it and teaching it, I've realized that this can be very scary for some people because it's, well, I guess for lack of a better way of expressing it, it's a lot of truth. It's a lot of, but in a good way. But I've learned everybody's on their own pace. And maybe that's why I wrote the second book, Time in a Bottle, because it shows how time unfolds for each one of us. But everybody's on their own pace and time to understandings, and that's free will. So I hope that helps a little bit, and it gives you a sense of the deep yearning that it really was.
Yeah, I love that, and there's so many pieces of just what you said about people being ready and at their own pace, and I think we can get caught up in that. We're looking at other people and they're like, oh, they're either so enlightened, they're further forward, or doing this thing, and we've got to just be in our own lane and sort of taking it one step at a time that we're ready for. I've noticed that I needed a little bit more time when I was going through certain things, and I guess that's just being kind to yourself, right?
Yeah, it's what's tolerable for you, because change can somehow feel like a 4-letter word, but when it's positive change and it brings you to a new experience of results, the issue is that if you've been in a lot of suffering, this can feel new and different. And even though it's a relief from suffering, it's still different. What I encourage people to realize is that not only are they going to survive if they allow this new awareness in and they examine it and entertain it for themselves, but they always have control over how much and how fast. And not only are they going to survive, they're going to thrive. So they have to be ready for that joy, ready for that experience, ready for that love.
Yeah. Have you, I want to ask you before we get stuck into all of this, just to keep the context as well, like, what does flow mean to you? And then I'm going to come back and ask you some other ones.
So flow to me means being in such a loving and accepting state with who you are that it produces such a presence of mind with where you're at any given moment that you can see the beautiful elegance and connection between you and life. Ooh. And how that dance is being played out based on where you want to go, your intentions. That to me is ultimate flow. And as I'm saying it, I have goosebumps running from the top of my head through my body. So it feels really good. So that's how I know. I mean, it's just showering me right now. It's really cool.
I love it.
So
I love it. I get the goosebumps too. I'm like, oh, it's almost, it's when you speak the truth, right? The goosebumps.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I love that that's your definition. And again, I've not heard anyone quite express it like that ever before. And I want to come back to a piece of that, but there was something you said there just before, about change being a relief, but it's different. It's not the pain, but it's also unfamiliar. Can you speak a little bit about how people, I guess, sometimes are not available for the change, or how they can become more available for more love, more happiness, and to feel and to be okay with that being different from the norm? Yeah.
So the biggest and most powerful answer is when they no longer fear their own annihilation, or they no longer fear the idea of death, when they realize the infinite nature of life, and that I love to say this, sort of sounds like an oxymoron, but you cannot not be. You are the windows to the world.
Okay.
Life needs you as the eternal observer in order for life to exist. So I think once people realize that they're going to survive the change and it's going to be okay, that helps grease the wheel, so to speak, to open to the change. The second part is linking it to someone's intention. What is your intention? And challenging that. Well, if it is your intention, then this is the pathway. So how much will and desire is really in that intention? Is it just a dream? Or you really want it? Because if you do, you'll be willing to walk through that door and embrace whatever comes your way. And again, when you combine that with this belief in eternal existence, so to speak, and that even though we seem finite, really there's something much more infinite going on, then it frees you more into a faith with life rather than a fear.
I love that. So there's going to be varying degrees of people on this call. And I've come to my own awareness, and I always felt death was so final. And I think that's what used to keep me up as a kid at night. I was stressed about death because it was so final. And when I've lost people, it's because it's always felt so final. And I'm like, it's so sad that that's it. And that was really the big problem for me, I guess. In a lot of my studies, and I've had a spiritual awakening in the last couple of years, and I've got into the Akashic records and had my past lives read, and I believe we are an infinite soul now. And so one of the things I said was, it's taken away my fear of death. How? And I'm very grateful for that in a way. It doesn't mean I'm ready or available for anyone else to go, but like in the sense, it just gives me, it doesn't feel quite as final as it used to. How does somebody get to that point of having that, when you no longer fear death? Because I love this, because you're like so expanded. You're like, so when you no longer fear death and annihilation, you just know you're going to survive. And I was like, which is amazing. But I was like, if you told me that 6 months ago, I'd have been like, what?
Right. And I don't mean to sound trite about it in any way.
No. I love it. I was just like, maybe just one step back.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's ironic that a couple of things related to this idea of death. We fear the one thing that we've never experienced. The only thing that each of us have known is life. So why project a fear on something that all you've known is your existence? So why fear something you haven't even experienced or don't even know? Now, I know you've seen it in people, plants, animals around you, but for yourself, you haven't experienced that. So that's one main thing, is to realize that your experience is the truth and your experience is life. The second thing is this idea that you fear death because it's going to take your life. But every moment that you're fearing death, it's taking away from your life.
Yes.
It's taking you out of the flow, out of the present moment, out of the creativity. Because the fear of death is either something past, something future. It's not the present. And so you're not in that beautiful state, that beautiful creativity, that beautiful space that is transcendent in the moment. And that's the other irony about fearing death. So it's more of a will to live than it is, building the will to live in the fullest way than it is focusing how to overcome this idea of death. Focus on the will to live, and then the rest will take care of itself. Like, for example, this information right now, coming into someone's view right now who's watching this and hearing these words and seeing us talk, there is an exact reason this is happening. This is demonstrating the way life is supporting each one of us on our journey at our time of readiness to hear the specific information that we want to hear. I'm simply honored to be part of the deliverer of for this moment anyways, of this information, or a steward of this information. But it's reflecting how much you're loved and how much this universe, this what I call the elegant universe, really knows when you're ready at the right time. And it sort of gives you a nice warm feeling that you're always going to be supported on your journey, and it can help.
Yes. I love that. You mentioned like a couple of amazing things there about how it's the longer you fear death, and it's like focusing on what we can't control, right? We like, that's beyond us. So I just felt there was a couple of principles of flow in there. It was about being in flow, you have to be present, and then it allows more creativity. Can you speak a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So when you're most present, the information that has always been there for you can be better received.
Yeah.
The information that you need, the blind spots that need to be filled in to complete the conditions that help you create what you want. When you're not present, and this is a big part of the second book, when you're not present, you're creating time. You're stuck in time. And you're expanding the amount of time that it takes to achieve your intention. So presence collapses time, and a lack of presence expands time, or it causes it to take longer. So when you're present, you're gaining the information, you're seeing more of what's possible for yourself, and therefore you can act towards those possibilities, and that's how creativity spawns. But when you're out of the present moment, you're only limiting it on it's a very limited potential of possibility, because you're not in the moment where all possibility exists. And therefore, it limits creativity. Does that make sense?
Yes. I love that. I was like, that's like such a tweetable, presence collapses time. I was like, it's such a beautiful concept. What other, there's so much of this. I want to ask you first about your I Am, because that was your first book. And then I'd love to ask another couple of questions about the time. What is the crux of the teaching in I Am? Can you just expand that just for us a little?
So the cliff notes, and you really have to experience the book, because the book is not an overnight read. It's like a manual. People have, the feedback I've gotten from all over the world is it's underlined and highlighted and tabbed. So there's a lot of work, but to give you the essence of it is understanding how much power there is in how you have determined in this moment your identity. Because life can only respond to your truth. Your truth gets expressed through your I am statements. Not who you think you are, but what you really truly believe. So you could think you're the best husband or wife, or you could think you're the best employee, but the truth of how you feel in your heart, those I am statements are what really the universe is responding to and meeting you with exactly, positively or negatively. So the book examines how those I ams have been formed since before you were born through your genetics and the socialization of past generations, through your nurturing, through your personal experiences. But it takes you into this moment to show you how in this very moment, it can all change.
I love it. I love it. I just, it's so powerful. When I realized that I would do anything to be who I identified to be, it blew my mind. And I was like, oh, I would have some power over that. But we often don't even realize who that person is. How would someone, I mean, obviously read the book would be a great idea, but how would they even start to identify who they identify to be? Like how, if they're like, well, I think I'm this and I think I'm that, where would they go to find that truth?
So the beautiful answer to that question is that they're doing it right now. They've already drawn in information. This is part of it, just one piece of their experience where they've drawn in this series that you're doing. And in this moment, information is coming to them to help them self-reflect and begin that process, or continue that process if they've been on it a while, or accelerate that process if they've been on it for a long time and finally they're getting a little more potent experience of it. But the process starts with a real readiness and a will to self-reflect. Now, most people stop there because of the poisons and the false notions of guilt, shame, and regret. Yeah. Those are three huge lies that society has used to manipulate people for behavioral purposes.
Yeah.
But from a sense of value, as personal evolution is concerned, or transformation, they're worthless. Responsibility and awareness of past behavior that created current circumstance, yes, need that. But shame, guilt, and regret, to pull it into this moment, will not allow any self-reflection. And that's why there's people in the world that can't admit a mistake, because they feel so small about themselves that they don't want to even threaten that small. So as you build a love and you build the understanding that you're doing the best you can, and you have compassion for yourself, and you build that, you allow more self-reflection, and that begins the process of increasing awareness and a sense of personal empowerment.
Oh my goodness.
This is a dense interview.
I love it. This is well, hopefully by the time they get to this one, they're going to be like already like, and then this is just going to all filter in, right? Because it's going to be perfect timing for whoever needs to hear it.
Exactly right.
As always.
No question.
I love that. It's that willingness. Why do you think, well, maybe I'm answering my own question, but like, why do you think so many people now are more available for asking these questions and for that self-reflection? Because I feel like, certainly in my experience and in my family, I'm from Scotland, if you haven't noticed with the accent, but we're not into self-reflection and self-responsibility and awareness of our actions.
Say it this way: we haven't been.
We haven't been. We're all awakening. And my family's like,
you
are you going to make me look at my stuff?
Right. Yeah. It's not alone in just Scotland. It's a worldwide phenomenon. But I think more people are going this path because self-awareness is the path. It is the path of life. Life is about the increasing consciousness, increasing awareness, the continual unfoldment of individual and global possibilities, universal possibilities. And so it's a natural progression or a natural evolution of ourselves as a species. In order, for the reason for our survival depends on the increase in our awareness. Because if we remain in ignorance, we'll go extinct, or the threat of that will become greater and greater. So I think as people's suffering has increased, because what used to work isn't working, new questions have been asked, and material is starting to be organized and flow like this that helps people on that journey. And some are more outliers and are more willing to be on the front edge of this, like yourself and myself and anybody listening. And then there's different, some people will be at the back end of this. So that's, to me, why we're seeing it more and more. Or it's the red car theory, where you're looking to buy a red car and then you see them everywhere.
I love it. I'm sort of explained it. You know how like there's this sort of the distribution bell curve of like the early adult, like the people who buy they're queuing up at Apple to get the new iPhone, and then there's the people that just order it on the internet and get it a week later, and then like, the people are like hanging on to their their old phone and waiting. And then there's like my parents who are still having this old Nokia, right? And they're like, I will not let the BlackBerry go.
Right. It's exactly, and it's interesting because that's why I wrote Time in a Bottle, because when this happened, I was like, wait till everybody hears, like, I can't wait to share. And then I realized, wow, like a lot of people aren't even close to ready to, experience this. So I'm a little ahead of time, which is okay, but it just sometimes in your life, you're a little bit ahead of things where other people are, and you just have to respect that.
I think it's beautiful because we need people like you to have these amazing realizations. So then you can like help the rest of us, help teach me and help teach, the people on this call to then help them through the awakening. So I just think it's beautiful how it kind of unfolds, and you get kind of led to that next person that you need to hear the message from. And I think it's just beautiful how it all unfolds. I love it. And it's just, the whole thing is fascinating to me, and I'm so grateful that I'm like, so I think I was so bored with my life, and now I'm going to be curious forever. And I love it.
It's a magical journey. It's the analogy that I have in the book is, it's like there's been this world of chaos that Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz, there's the tornado, and there's the people in her lives, and her uncles weren't listening to her, and her aunt and uncle were upset with her, and the neighbor lady was chasing her dog, and there was this confusion, and is there a better place? There's got to be a better place somewhere. And then magically she gets transported to this beautiful world where the first thing that happens on this new journey is she opens the door to a world of complete color, from black and white to color. And she steps into this new world of color and starts to see things differently. And that begins her journey of everything she needs to understand life more. So it's a cool and exciting and humbling and awe-inspiring journey to take. And it's fun. If you embrace it like that, it can be a lot of fun every day to wake up and go, okay, where's the awareness going to come from today? What am I going to learn? What flow am I going to enter into? What coincidences are going to pop into my so-called coincidences?
Right. I love it. We were just saying, there's so many, and I think that's one of the signs of flow is when these things happen and you're like, oh my God, me too. I love it. I love it. What would one step that somebody could, so if somebody's like listening to this going, all right, I'm available to question my identity or self-reflect, what would the first step they maybe take to get a little bit more control in their life?
Right. So as I mentioned, they've already taken the first step because they're allowing this information to flow into their awareness, whatever steps they took to do that. The next step is based on their will, and their level of interest is to delve further into the material, from all the guests that you've had on to material to anything else that resonates with them and they feel vibes with them and where they're at on their journey, and to continue to explore, to be more compassionate with themselves, to be willing to question any negative or limiting thoughts, because any negative or limiting thought about yourself is a lie. So that's a huge start to begin to challenge something that you've taken as the gospel in your life since you were, 3-4 years old. That may not be true if it limits you in some way from what you can experience, from the loving relationship you want that you can experience, from the job and the building of a business that you want, from your health, any area, from your general path of learning spiritual awareness and what you're worthy of experiencing, which is anything that you're ready for and you're willing to travel towards continuously. And like, going back to this analogy of the Wizard of Oz, on her journey to find her way home, the witch kept popping up. Fear will creep up, but that's why you need courage, right?
Right, right.
So, because it'll keep popping up every once in a while to try and stop you, but you have to keep pressing on and facing it to get through it. So that's the summation of a few keys for the journey.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And yeah, I've heard, like, I've looked at that Wizard of Oz story, and when people have broken down, it's like, that was way ahead of its time. Like, that was not just a little, like...
Oh, yeah.
And then the whole time she had the shoes on, and she could have just, like, I was like, damn.
Started with a brain to be able to mind your own, to question the world, and then the need for a heart, for love and courage, and ultimately to realize that the power isn't in some magical wizard or, but it's in you. And it's amazing, actually, that that's why it's one of the most, for many reasons, but I think the thread of the story underneath it all, the subtext of the spiritual story, is really powerful as a mirror for one's journey through greater self-awareness and understanding the I am at the real core of who you are.
I love that. Are you a fan of sort of affirmations and like changing that I am statement? Where do you feel like that fits into the process?
It fits into the process. A lot of people they say these affirmations over and over again, and they're not worth anything unless they really come from a changed truth on the inside. You can't push it from the outside in. You really have to dig in and do the real work in finding where those negative or limiting thoughts have been and challenging those for the first time. Then the affirmations become very powerful. And they can be a first step to begin to, because they can dig up, sometimes by saying it, then you hear the counter thought, and then you finally can see it, what the ego is trying to protect. So from that aspect, it's kind of a way to dig the poison out of the well, so to speak, to see it surface it so you can scoop it out, But yeah, I think I am affirmations are very powerful in conjunction with a new view one has of themselves. Yes.
And yeah, I'm a big fan of that as well, because it's like, I feel like it's almost trying to bypass doing the work without, if you're just trying to do the affirmations, and then people are like, this shit doesn't work. What's going on?
Right, exactly. Right.
It's just like, you missed 3 steps.
Right. I did a vision board, which is great because you can visualize what you want, or I said these affirmations and I believe it and I believe in it. That's only one level. The real journey is the deep journey of self-reflection. When you look at that image of being madly and deeply and passionately in love with the man or woman of your dreams, that you imagine just sitting and holding hands within a movie theater in that safe space, when you really imagine that, do you see yourself worthy of that? And if not, what lie is preventing you from believing that? And then when you go out and you experience and you meet people, are you honoring yourself in the biggest way by being willing to see who it is that you're engaging with before it falls apart later, because you knew there were some signs there, but you maybe just said, well, I need this so bad that I'm willing to give that up. Or are you willing to be patient and really, really wait? Again, this goes for any category, job or individual, but that's where the real tests come in how you're honoring yourself.
Absolutely. I love that. You very briefly mentioned the word ego and trying to stop you from seeing your things. I think your take on the ego is a little bit different from a lot of other people. Can you explain the difference between your take on the ego and maybe what common?
It's really an interesting question. For so many years, the ego has been looked at and demonized as something that we have to destroy or get rid of. Many, many, many teachings. I don't see it that way. I see the ego as an ally that helps us protect, defend, and create what we believe is true, good or bad. So it's going to defend that identity until that identity changes. It's an ally helping us experience what we believe to be true for ourselves, positive or negative. So once you realize that, you can start to see in your emotions and in your reactions that the ego is doing something to protect a belief that's being challenged. And then for the first time, you can dig that belief out and see, wow, I see what the ego is protecting, that I'm insecure about. Someone made a comment about the way I dress and I'm getting all upset. I've been insecure about the way, instead of being more confident, instead of being totally complete with how I am and how I present myself, or instead of pulling in some information going, there's maybe a kernel in there that I can take, but I'm not taking any of the negative stuff. And I'm going to own this space is what it boils down to.
I love that.
To master your mind and you get comfortable with your identity, then finally nobody can affect your happiness. You are in complete control. So to me, the ego is a great ally for us. And the minute you change your identity, the ego will then work to defend and protect the new identity and help create it for you. So it's always working for you. The question is, what is it working to do?
Oh, I love that. Because there's so many, if you can't, hate I'm reading about one of our other authors that are on this series. It's like, you can't hate yourself thin. So you can't really hate your ego away, right? It's like, I guess it's like you love it for what it's giving you and then make it work for you, as opposed to like just demonizing it and hating it. I'm like, oh.
Right. You accept what it's been doing up to this moment, but through the acceptance, you can finally be in the state of awareness to know how to change it, because you finally accepted that this is what it's been.
Yes.
If you're resisting it, you can't change something you resist because you've never acknowledged it in the first place. So how can you know it to change?
Yes. Oh my gosh, I love that as well. You can't change what you resist. I'm taking a lot of notes. I don't know if you've noticed. I'm like scribbling away all these notes. I love it. If it's okay, I've had 2 questions left, I think. Maybe 3. I just want to come back. We were talking, I think anybody would kill me if I didn't come back and ask you this, but we were talking about time being present, which creates this collapsing of time. And I think so many of us are, especially in this new world, this entrepreneurial space, and we're like, we see some people and they just explode out of nowhere. They're having 7 figures in 5 minutes. They're, out rocking all this stuff, and they seem to be collapsing timelines. And then there's other people who are like, I'm doing all of this stuff, I'm working my butt off, and nothing's happening. How on earth do you collapse timelines? And then how does that create this infinite possibility space? Because I think there's people just aren't quite seeing, we're still trapped in our little box of reality.
So because you don't know the path that person's life took since they were 2 years old, or their backstory on the genealogy of how successful and entrepreneurial past generations were to have that knack and that awareness and that knowing that is in their DNA that causes them to create, you can't know why they've done it so fast. What you can take from that is the inspiration of the possibility and then learn what they're doing. So instead of looking at it from a state of envy, which is not valuable, you look at it from a state of curiosity. What can I learn? Wow, they've really done it. It's amazing, because envy comes from a lack of personal faith.
Yeah.
Whereas curiosity comes from, I can do that too. Let me learn how they did it.
Yes.
And then the second part is, if it's not happening for you yet, just know that the universe doesn't play favorites. When the conditions are all there, it will happen.
Yes.
It's got to happen. That's just the way everything is coming to being. So just know all the conditions aren't there yet. And keep going.
What might some of those conditions be? Is there a checklist? No, I'm just kidding.
Depending on what the intention is, there is a checklist, but there's an outer checklist of all the things you need to put in place. But there's also that magical faith in you and that belief. That's the real pixie dust, is the belief that you hold that what you're doing will manifest. And you'll continue to go and keep polishing and shaping until all the conditions are there. The farmer, when he plants a seed and waters and makes sure it's in fertile soil and make sure it's getting sunlight, at some point, there's nothing left for the farmer to do. Now, he might check the water, might think he watered it and check the water to make sure that it's not calcified or, it's not poisonous. But once you've done all the checking and double checking, the farmer at some point, there's nothing left to do. He has to go back in the house and let divine providence take over. Because if he sits there and digs in the soil, where's my apple tree? Takes years of nurturing and keeping your head down and keep going and just keep plugging along every day, because that's the process of faith demonstrated. And there's nothing the universe loves more than demonstrated faith that is rewarded with its result. But sometimes people's lack of faith has to get rooted out first, and they have to get humbled until they finally say, okay, I'm getting closer in alignment with the space that I need to be in from all areas. And there's no greater demonstration of faith than patience. Wow, now that one I might have to tweet out.
Right? I love it. Yeah, I love it. And I think that's one thing that so many of us are missing, because it's like, and I think it's like that flip, right? If you're focused on why it hasn't happened yet, you're creating more of that, right?
Right. Or if you fear it's not happening and you're worried, that worry is coming from a lack of faith. It's coming from fear, which is coming from a lack of belief. And the universe is responding to the lack of belief. So the universe forces you into faith. There's no way around it. Once you have the awareness to put all the conditions together and you keep going, it's just, there's no way around faith.
Oh my gosh. I love this. I'm just a little bit aware of time, but I'm so curious. Like, I could sit and ask you questions all day, because it's just awesome. But, I'm just really curious about you work with a lot of athletes and high performance. And I think that's one thing that a lot of entrepreneurs, there's a piece missing in the puzzle with that. And we don't look at it, or we don't value it enough. What are maybe even a story about someone in that space, but how would a couple of lessons from the athlete high performance world translate into somebody who's starting a business, or what are a lesson we could learn from all that? If that it doesn't almost make sense.
That's okay. I'll take it. That's okay. In Major League Baseball, which I work in a lot, quote, failure is a big part of the process, because when if you bat 300, which means 3 out of 10 times you're getting a hit, you get into the Hall of Fame in baseball. I mean, that's how much failure is involved. That means 7 out of 10 times you're not executing.
Wow.
You're getting out. And so they have to go through that and be able to still have the faith to get back in there the next time and get ready. So they can't have a memory of what happened. They have to think positively, because when a fastball is coming at them mid-90s or sometimes 100 miles an hour, they have to be in the greatest state of flow and presence that they can be in, to be able to get their intuition kicking in, to feel the type of pitch they're going to get thrown, so they can be in the position where they're ready for it, to be able to release, or to know whether they're going to get thrown a ball or a strike sometimes. You have to almost intuitively guess that before the pitch is coming. So it requires a lot of non-executing and the willingness to dust themselves off, get up, and do it again. Those that can do it and believe in themselves the most are the ones that execute the most. And I've seen it over and over and over. The ones that take the failure personally and let it bother them, or don't see it as a learning experience, are the ones that struggle or scuffle, as they say in baseball, where they go into slumps. But as that belief gets bigger and stronger, whether they're a batter or pitcher, sometimes they've got 9 other guys coming at them in the rotation with strong intentions to beat them in that moment. They have to remain. They throw a bad pitch, someone gets a hit, a double, a triple, home run. They have to go right back into this next guy's mind, and they have to have consistent, powerful attitude about it.
Mm. What would one, so I feel like a lot of the, like, if I pulled a thread out of this whole interview, it would be about presence and coming back to that, either to have the self-awareness, to be more creative, to be patient, to not doubt, to have faith. Like, it sort of underpins everything. What's your one tip or tool that you would recommend for people to become more present in their everyday life?
The theme is the same, but to be more present is to experience a greater sense of personal love. Whatever it takes to do that, whatever self-reflective work, gratitude work, self-awareness work, personal questioning, forgiveness work they need to do. Because that brings a greater sense of peace and it reduces fear. When you reduce fear, you're not regretting the past, you're not projecting a negative future, you're more where you're at. And then you can be and give that love in your present moment. The second thing I would say is to not judge your environment, to not project on your environment. This person's looking to do that to me. This person's looking to do this to me. This person's cutting me off in traffic. This person is, just be open to a greater possibility from your environment and watch what happens. It'll be amazing. Someone may cut in front of you in line at the grocery store, and where before you would have gotten upset and body language, and I can't believe this. Instead, you give enough space to go, wow, maybe they're having a bad day, or you never know. The minute that thought comes in, this has happened to me over and over, that person will turn around and go, oh my gosh, did I just cut in front of you? I'm so sorry. Put their hands on me. I'm so sorry. I'll be like, no, it's fine. You have less items than me. Go ahead. Or no, I'm going to get behind you. I'm terribly sorry. And then I'll strike up a conversation. They'll be the nicest person in the world, and who knows where it leads. But it started from my attitude of looking at the world from a standpoint of beauty and grace and love, rather than a negative fear-based, where, again, life's reacting to that truth. So it will mold to your shape of it. So those are two ways to get more in presence and flow. Yes.
I love that. And I love how my life is a little bit different now that I think that, like, and I'm beginning to be more conscious of that. So I love it. Thank you so much. This is amazing. Like, it's just such great, solid lessons in here. And you've got a free gift that you've been so generous to give everybody. Can you just explain a little bit about what it is, and we'll have all the links linked up below with where they can find it?
Sure. So the main link for my work is my website, howardfalco, FALCO.com. And if you sign up there, you get a free I am worksheet that helps you to organize your thoughts and your intentions of what you want, and shows you a method of how to give yourself a roadmap to creating that. So it begins the process. I also do private session work, one-on-one private session work for any issue imaginable. And for anybody that mentions this series that you're doing, I will give 30% off what the regular rate is for a session. So it would be 30% off the $195 rate for a session. And then also on my website is information about my books and additional videos and just additional resources that relates to the work I'm doing. And then from time to time, you'll get information about where I'm speaking and teaching and what I'm doing in the world.
Amazing. I love it.
And then there's a sports website too, which is Total Mind Sports, which is for the sports work.
I love it. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for doing this work and for being so curious and for joining us today. Like, it's, I love it. You're like, you've been doing this a bit longer than me, and it helps bring the rest of us through. So thank you so much.
My honor. Thank you very much for having me on and for doing what you're doing, Joanna. I appreciate it.
Thank you.